Every video platform on the planet is designed to do one thing: show who you are. Ghostline is the only one designed to make sure it doesn't. Ghostline provides real-time video masking, voice disguising, and encrypted peer-to-peer connections, all executed inside the browser. No downloads, no accounts, no data stored. Here's what a complete Ghostline session looks like, from the first click to final disconnect.
The host navigates to ghostline.digital and clicks Create Room. A unique room code is generated instantly. That's the only thing the guest needs to join. No tracking links, no email addresses, just a code. And that code only allows a single connection: anyone who tries to join after the guest is blocked. The host sends the code to the guest and waits. The guest receives the code, heads to ghostline.digital, enters it, and hits Join Room. Before connecting to anyone, the guest lands on a privacy control screen. This is where they take full control of their identity. Video anonymization is enabled by default with 3 styles to choose from: pixelation, silhouette, and blur, each with an intensity slider. There's also a no video toggle that transmits a completely black screen. For audio, the guest enables voice masking, pitch shifted and modulated in real time. Natural mask is the default. Robotic mode provides extreme obfuscation. For high-risk situations, the guest can enable high anonymity mode, which routes all traffic through relay servers to hide their IP address from the host. All of this processing happens inside the guest's browser before anything is transmitted. There is no raw stream to intercept. Once satisfied with their settings, the guest hits join and the connection is established. The host now sees the guest's anonymized feed, not their real face,
not their real voice,
only what the guest chose to reveal. The host hits record. The conversation happens naturally, back and forth, in real time. The guest's identity stays fully protected throughout. When the conversation wraps up, the host hits stop. 3 recording options are now available for download, guest, host, or split screen, all in WebM format containing only the anonymized feed. The guest's real identity was never captured. The host can also download a full transcript with timestamps and speaker labels. Transcription runs entirely on device, using the browser's built-in speech recognition. No audio is sent to any external service. Both participants leave the room. No session data is saved, no logs are kept, the room is gone.
Ghostline serves investigative journalists, whistleblowers, documentary filmmakers, HR teams, therapists, legal teams, content creators, and law enforcement. Anyone who needs to be heard without being identified. Ghostline, real conversations, real anonymity. This is
privacy identified.
Try it now at ghostline.digital.
Syntax. Engaging. This is BarCode, a cocktail-powered podcast that dives deep into the personalities, criminals, and heroes that have come to define security across the globe. Please join our host, Chris Glandon, for another wild foray into the incredible world of humans and how they intertwine with today's modern technology. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Four, three, two, one.
Activate.
Welcome to BarCode. I'm your host, Chris Glandon, and today my guest is Pyr0. He's currently VP of Offensive Security at Red Helm, although a true OG in offensive security and red teaming with work spanning way back 96. His physical pen tests have included Ferrari dealerships, biolabs, and financial trading floors. He spent 23 years as a senior DEF CON goon, founder of Sky Talks, published author, contributing member of the 303 and Illuminati Party hacker families, and I have to say, one killer beard. Pyr0,
Thank you.
thanks for stopping by BarCode, man. It's good to see you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's an honor to get the opportunity to be able to visit with you and your followers for sure.
No problem, man. And I'm super stoked to have you on. So you are architecting one of the most interesting conference concepts I've seen in a long time, SaltCon, which is a community-driven event dedicated to the history of hacking. And I can't wait to get into that discussion. But before we do, I'd love to hear your hacker origin story, if you don't mind. With the extensive experience that you have, just tell us how that all started for you.
Yeah, I grew up in a very small town in the middle of Wyoming. For a lot of you folks out there that have never been to Wyoming, it is one of the largest landmass states in the nation. And there are, I think it's like 630,000 people in the entire state. Over 230,000 of those are down in the Laramie and Cheyenne area, right at the Colorado-Wyoming border. What that means is that pretty much anywhere you go up there, there's no one. Literally, you can drive 15 minutes out of a town and look to the curvature of the earth in any direction and not see another living human being. So to say that I was kind of a big fish in a small pond with this stuff is an exaggeration or an under exaggeration, I guess. I don't know the right way to describe that, but it was one of those things where I grew up in a very supportive household and family. My mother and father, even though I was a bit of a black sheep and a bit of a troublemaker throughout my life, they were always there to support and make sure that we were kind of being guided in making good choices over bad, right? And that led to me experimenting and playing more and more with electronics and all kinds of other fun things. A brief summary, I got in trouble when I was like 14 years old, hacking the school district. To show you how old I am and why I actually deserve this beard is that back then it was a Novell NetWare network running on a token ring environment. My hack, if you want to call that, was I wrote a simple script that I put into the login directory, the L drive on these Novell hosts, which were a series of batch files that would run anytime anybody logged in. Well, we had discovered that I think it was the X drive or the Y drive had all these administrative tools. And one of my favorite tools on there was send. You could send a message to any other logged in user by typing send their name and then a message, and it would just pop up on the screen. And I thought that was pretty witty. So I wrote a batch file so that every single time anyone logged into the network, it would send a message to everyone that would say, I am God. As you can imagine, in a token ring network, that very, very quickly DOSed this network out of existence, right? Because it's just sitting there passing the tokens, and every single time somebody tried to log on, it would do it again to every single logged in host. That got me a little negative attention. Mom and dad getting called in, school telling me I couldn't play with computers anymore, that kind of a thing. Through the help of very kind staff at the school district, I ended up actually working with the school district IT coordination team to help them with their computers and with deploying the networks and doing all this work later on, which was a great foot in the door into what became my career, right? Around that same time, I became Rocky Mountain Internet's first technical administrator, working underneath Andy Hansen, the founder of Rocky Mountain Internet, and helped stand up one of the first ISPs that was out in Wyoming. 16 years old, same kind of thing, got in a little bit of trouble targeting a large online internet service provider. Myself and several others who were geographically distributed across the United States kind of got a bit of a negative attention for what we did there, all because somebody typed the wrong command and made it to where a whole bunch of people couldn't log on. But in the end, by the time that 16, 17 rolled around, I had founded Hackers Against Corporate Culture, HACC, or HA greater than, whichever one it is that looks like the C. I always get those backwards. And that kind of carried into college. when we hit college, we had a team of 14 people on Hack, I think, at that point, and we were running Searchlight BBS. We had people that were dialing in. I'd had Searchlight up since about, I think it was 93, 94. It ran for several years. And we tied into all these people that were phoning in from the Denver area code. And we later found out they were doing that because it was cheaper for them to dial a 307 out of state long distance number than doing in state long distance, for those of you who remember how phone bills used to work back in the day before it was unlimited calling, unlimited data everywhere you go. And the groups back then, all of these TAC, TNO, attrition, lithium node, all these different groups, these folks were dialing in and uploading different documents and programming manuals and all this kind of cool stuff. But it gave me this understanding that I wasn't alone in the world, right? Being up in Wyoming, having just a close set of friends that were doing this type of thing. We barely heard about DEF CON at that point. I think they were at DEF CON 5 or 6 at that point. 6 was my first at the Plaza. But it made it to where we were able to start really thinking about, what we wanted to do with this. And I kept telling everybody, it's like, listen, I want to spin up a company, and I want to do exactly like the things that we saw in sneakers and war games and all the fun little TV shows that we all grew up watching and loving. But I want to do it for real. And in 1996 was when we launched Root Cellar Security Team. 96, 97, actually. I'm trying to remember the exact year now. And we were quite blessed being, again, a very, small, at the time, my wife owned 51% of the company. So we were a GS scheduled minority owned company. And it made it to where we were able to get our foot in the door with a lot of different companies out there. Bureau of Indian Affairs, primarily at first, being out on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. And that got us working with the school districts. Ended up being a technology coordinator for the school districts, and then became a DEF CON goon, DEF CON 7, and it just kind of flourished from there. On the professional side of the house, Chris Nickerson, Ryan Jones, and I stood up the security practice at Alternative Technology that later became Aero Electronics. The work that we were doing there, one of the first commercial service teams to be doing full scope offensive testing and offensive or ethical espionage type work, that really kind of opened a lot of doors for us. And we ended up getting contacted. We shot the Tiger Team TV show, which I hope everybody at this point had a fun time watching and getting to poke fun at us. But it was very well received from the industry, all 2 episodes of it. Coming out of there, I ended up working at British Telecommunications as a senior pen tester. Alternative Technology, One World Labs. I helped stand up the offensive and the vulnerability management programs for Mayo Clinic, and that led me into Coalfire. At Coalfire, I was part of the team over there, and we grew that business. I believe when I joined, I was like employee 12 in labs.
Wow.
And we were a fairly small practice. 5.5 years later, when the business went a different direction, myself and several others stepped away from that business, and it was insane. It was like we were 132 pen testers, almost a $40 million a year practice at that point. It was pretty insane, the type of work and the things that we were doing. After leaving Coalfire, I reached out to Michael Stratos, who was the founder of Ideal Integrations, now known as Red Helm. And I said, Michael, we've been doing work from like a VAR-VAT type model for a very long time, but I would love to come over and found a red team. And here are the things I want to do, and here's how it's going to be differentiated, and here's how it's going to be unique, and here's why this is going to be a big win. And he signed off, supported the program. We're at 5 years now and have just been absolutely kicking ass on all the different engagements and the growth that we've seen through the business. So that's kind of the more professional side of what I've done and how I've kind of got to where I'm at in the industry. If you want to hear some of the stories, some are good, some are naughty, those things, I recommend coming out to the conference.
Yes.
I will tell a fireside story or two. And the fireside stories that we're doing, we plan to do out on the beach around fire, true fireside chats. And those are going to follow Sky Talks rules, right? We're not going to be recording those. So if you want to hear some of the fireside chats from some amazing people within the industry, I definitely recommend coming out and checking out the conference that we're putting on.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. But that's an incredible story, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. And yes, leave the unprofessional stories for the con, because I definitely want to catch up with you there and talk through that. And correct me if I'm wrong, you know, you sort of started off grid being in Wyoming. You went off grid to all in. But there was a point in 2017 where you went full off grid, right? Like bunker
Yeah.
home, mountains of northern Colorado, high frequency radio, gold mining. And, tell me a
Oh, yeah.
little bit about that because, we all think about doing it, but you did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're at 9 years, almost 10 years here now, doing that. And it was crazy. I was going through a divorce with my second wife. Most of you know Ed. Edward is the founder of Mohawk Con at DEF CON. Absolute wonderful human, one of my favorite and best friends still to this day. We did not ever get divorced or split because there was a problem. It was more that we had different directions we were wanting to go in life. So we've maintained a really good friendship. In fact, I tease all the time because Melanie, my wife of 10 years now, whenever we go out shopping, she constantly is buying stuff for my ex-wife, like because they're best friends. So I always make the joke of telling my wife to stop buying my ex-wife things, right? But they're great together. But when the change in life happened, Melanie and I were talking about what we wanted to do, and we had been down in the heart of Denver for many years at that point. Very committed to the 303 crowd and the organization, very involved almost on like a weekly basis there at the end. Back in the day, it used to be a daily type basis, but COVID and all those things started kind of pushing things a little further out. But we got this idea where we were like, we want some land, and we want a place that we can have as our home, and I want to quit paying rent, right? I hate giving money to somebody else for their equity in their home. So we went out and we started looking at things. We defined and kind of figured out our budget. And we first found this little plot of land that we have that's 14.5 acres for the first land purchase with the house. And the house was kind of a shell. The guy who owned it, the guy who built it, was an avid hunter, wanted to be able to have this as kind of like, man was worth like hundreds of millions of dollars when he built this place. But he made this shack, 3,200 square foot shack up in the mountains so that he'd have a place to go hunt deer, elk, turkeys, and that stuff. When the housing market in 2007 crashed, he ended up having to sell it to help pay payroll and to help things with an active project that he had out at the Denver airport. So he flipped this to a professor of science and communication she's out of Texas A&M. And in all the time that she owned it, she held on to the house for 9 years. And the entire time that she held it, she was up here for a total of 2.5 months. And apparently hated every moment of it. Didn't like the off-grid stuff, didn't like there being bears, mountain lions, all that stuff walking through the yard. So she essentially just was sitting on the house. And when we found it, it was a dream because it was everything we needed, right? There was already an 80-foot tower out back for my ham radio. It had a 1,000-watt generator or wind turbine sitting up on top of it, right? Already all wired into the house. The solar system that they had here, there were 6 panels that were on a solar tracker and an old iron Edison battery setup. So when we came in, the basic infrastructure of what we wanted to do was there, even though that we needed to massively upgrade to be able to support a day-to-day life here. So we ended up doing another large solar array on top of the house. We set up multiple antennas for HF, I've got disc cone antennas up there. I've got 2 meter, 70 centimeter, 1.25, and then all across the HF band. Because we're up on the side of this mountain and it's super quiet, like from a signal interference standpoint, it's pretty epic. I've been able to do like some like really, really low wattage stuff using like Whisper and FT4, FT8, and have reached all the way around the world using just tiny amounts of power. Partly because those programs and those different protocols are good with that. But in the same sense, it's just nice being up on top of a mountain, right? Height is king when it comes to radio. So we have a lot of good fun. But yeah, we have chickens. We are 100% off grid. We have our own wells. We have our own power generation, both propane and gasoline generators as backups. Although at this point, because we've upgraded the solar enough, we rarely ever have to fire up a generator. I mean, it's like you get those 3-4 days in a row with no sun and you're just inside of a cloud, then things can get a little crazy. But I tell people it's It's easy once you're into it. When you first try to go at this, it can be a little intimidating, right? To learn all the equipment, understand how everything works, realizing that, when you call, when you live in the city and you call a plumber because your pipes aren't working, plumber comes out and they know exactly how a city grid works and they know exactly how these setups work. Here,
Okay.
I have to do that, right? It's my water lines going into my cistern, my waste lines going down into the septic, and you have to learn all these different components and parts. Cool part is I can tell you, 10 years in, I don't even think about it. It's just become a daily way of functioning and a daily way of life. And like when friends and stuff come up and visit, outside of reminding them not to flush stupid things down the toilet, we really don't have any difference. Turn on the
Yeah.
tap, there's hot water, right? You go over and you flush the toilet, the water flushes, right? It's just not as hard as people make it out to be. The one thing I will tell people is that it costs a lot. Don't go moving off grid if you think you're doing it to save money, because you won't. Having to be responsible for all these different services and pipes and lines and everything else that you do, that stuff all comes out of your pocket or insurance's pocket. So it is not a cheaper way to live. But I'll tell you, at this point, I would have a really hard time going back into like a large city or something else and leaving this behind. I hope that I get to die a very, very old man sitting on my front porch in a rocking chair with a shotgun, right? I want to be that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that sounds so cool, man. Again, you hear people that want to move in that direction and never pull the trigger. So for someone that's actually done it and heard what goes into it, the logistics involved, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
And your
My
internet
wife
connection
takes
looks
care
good.
of the day to day. She's the one that makes sure the chickens are fed. She makes sure the bees are in a good place, right? We have all these different living things and like, obviously with my job, I work 50, 60 hour weeks every week. So she does a good job of making all this stuff happen. That's the other thing I tell people is make sure you've got a good partner and somebody that wants to ride that ride with you, because doing it alone, that's beyond a full-time job. We were one of Starlink's first adopters, so we got let in the better than nothing beta, which were for people that were out in the middle of nowhere that had no other options for internet. We've been with Starlink ever since. I do have a dual Starlink setup along with a point-to-point long-range Wi-Fi setup through a different provider. And then I take those three connections, I bring them into a PF Sense box, and then I have my WAN, and then it's my op1, op2 are all incoming, WANs essentially. And then I do high availability load balancing and failover to share into the internal networks that we have. And we have like a network for our smart devices, we have a network for our computing, that kind of thing. But by the time it's all over and done with, any given day, we get about 320 meg down and about 40 to 60 meg up.
Okay.
So incredibly functional. I do
Yeah.
high speed gaming when I actually have half a minute to turn on an Xbox, and do stuff like Black Ops. And my
Okay.
wife like lives in Fallout 76, and we never see lag. So I've got to say it's pretty amazing how the technologies have enabled people to get away from the cities.
That's impressive, man. Okay, so let's talk SaltCon. I'm super stoked for this, and I wanted to get into details, but for those that aren't familiar to SaltCon, if you don't mind, in your own words, just explain what is SaltCon and then, the driver for it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This is the first year, and when we say community driven, we mean community driven, as in the speakers that are showing up and supporting this and standing behind are, they're doing this because they believe in the cause, right? When you look at the sponsors that are coming in, these are typically people that I've had long-term relationships with, or are people that are associated with the various companies of the people who may or may not be speaking, right? It's kind of interesting, but it is very much a community-oriented, community-driven conference. SaltCon, or NaClCon, right, sodium chloride con, is a bit of a play off of the Carolina salt life. And for those of you who have never been out to North or South Carolina, salt life is like a way of life, right? It's this relaxed beach type community feel. Uh, it's the rolling waves. It's cheap, good seafood and Carolina barbecue. It's the music and the culture that goes along with this. But it's something that's quite special. And if you've never been there before, it's kind of hard to visualize or really capture the beauty, the detail, the friendliness, just how inexpensive it is to be out there. So we've been telling people, it's like we're trying to put out a lot of detail and information, but take the time to go watch like videos on YouTube and stuff about the Carolina Boardwalk to get a good idea. The conference is happening at the Oceanside Marriott, Carolina Beach, and we are taking over the whole hotel. There's 144 rooms. Every one of the rooms faces the ocean and has like a sliding window or a balcony. And it's just epic. These rooms are usually about 460 to $480 a night during the weekend, during the prime season, which is when we're going out there, is right after, it's the weekend after the Memorial Day weekend. This is happening May 31st through June 2nd. So it's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And the cool part about the hotel and the way that they've worked with us from a contract standpoint is everybody's getting these rooms at like right at a 75% discount. They're $139 a night. So your entire stay for the conference is the equivalent or slightly less. I think it's like $5 less than what you would pay for just this hotel room for one night typically.
Yeah.
So that's the first big win that we got, was that the hotel was like, yeah, if you guys are going to bring us a cool conference with a bunch of cool people, let's do it. And the Marriott worked with the production company to put together this really cool package.
And again, you said Courtyard by Marriott, Carolina Beach, oceanfront. So
yeah.
Oceanfront, you're not walking blocks, you're not taking a shuttle, you're not taking a lift. You can open your door and you are on the sand. And for a conference about, hacker culture, hacker history, that setting alone is, I think, going to just bring a different energy into the room. And it's something that you just, you don't see other conferences pull off like that.
Yeah. Well, and not just the firesides like out on the beach during the evenings. We've got 2 nights of firesides where we're literally trying to pull the permits with the city. The production company's doing all this, but we're going to put out fire pits and do the conversations out there. But the best part about this and the location is that you are part of the Carolina Beach Boardwalk. And the Carolina Beach Boardwalk, there is a small amusement park carnival that's set up there. They have an arcade that's dedicated to like games of skill. So it's not a whole bunch of like arcade machines. It's a bunch of like, different types of, can I get the ball in the hole? Can I, it's all the fun stuff that all of us old timers really like to do, right? It's pretty sweet. You look at the businesses that are there and it's all these amazing restaurants, fun little dive bars. Everything's dirt cheap. If you haven't ever been out there, Google this place and look at it. It's called the Fat Pelican.
Okay.
It's run by, there's 2 employees, a husband and a wife. And you walk into this place and the first thing you do is you walk into their beer cooler. And in their beer cooler, it's exactly like if you've ever worked at any restaurant or anything else, big walk-in. You go in, you pick your alcohol, you walk up to the register, and the wife of the couple checks you out. And then the husband's around cleaning up and picking stuff up. But this place is kind of a winding maze of all these little rooms and little areas where you can hang out. We've got a great outdoor section as well, but no 2 chairs are the same, right? No 2 tables are the same. This place has been pieced together, what looks like probably from previous hurricanes coming through the area and destroying it. And like, the first time I walked in there, I'm like, man, it literally looks like somebody showed up with like a trailer and just drove down Hurricane Alley and picked up different stuff to try to rebuild and create this bar. But it's right up our alley. It is the perfect place where it's laid back. People are super chill and friendly. The alcohol is absolutely dirt cheap. And I envision people ending up in these little alcoves and these little enclaves of groups sitting there getting into really involved, deep conversations until, I think they're open until 3 a.m. in the morning. So there's going to be a lot of that, right? We are taking over a cool rooftop for the speaker dinner and for select hosts. Dual Core is coming out to do a concert at the Sea Witch. So we've got this outdoor, cool kind of lifted stage, and we're going to put them out there. And then there's this awesome, like, wooden floored area that lifts up with open walls into where all the bars are at. But again, beach life, right? That's really the whole SaltCon thing behind the name and why it is the way it is.
Love that.
Talking about some of the speakers, we're going to release our speaker list on the 18th. So by the time this has gone live, the speakers should be public.
Okay.
We have folks that are coming in who are some of the original founders of some of the oldest hacking crews and groups that are out there, right? 303, DOC, Loft, right? These folks and many more are coming in to come kind of tell their stories and share the history behind where these groups came from and how they were impactful, how they changed and influenced the industry that we all now call our job
Yeah,
or
yeah.
life, right? And it's going to be neat to have them. I did also yesterday get confirmation of a very special guest who is going to be coming to help us keynote. And without saying too much, I will say that this person is, well, I don't want to give it away. I'll say this person has been doing this since 1970
Okay.
in Berkeley, might have
Yes.
something to do with the Homebrew Computing Club.
Yes.
And they are wanting to come out and tell their story. And when you get the opportunity to listen to some of the people that were there during the days of the creation of Microsoft and Apple and Atari and some of these others, those types of people I think have absolutely epic stories that the younger generation and new folks need to hear. And that's
Sure.
kind of the point of what we're doing with this conference, going back to the community side of it. The idea is let's get everybody together. Small conference, 2 to 300 people for the conference. No more than 300 is what we've told everybody. But the idea is to try to pull everybody together and to do, 7 main talks a day, have some firesides at night. There's going to be open bars. One of the neat things that we're trying to do is make this as all encompassing as it can. So when you buy your pass to the conference, not only are you obviously getting to the conference, but we're paying for 2 meals a day. Your breakfast and your lunch are part of it that's included. So you're only really ever, thinking about dinner. And again, dirt cheap options for food out there. But we're doing all kinds of other things. The gift bags we're putting together, we're going to throw apparel and other things that are kind of beach centric to kind of support folks. My wife made the comment. She goes, you're going to get a bunch of people that are going to show up there in like head to toe black with like combat boots walking out onto the beach, right? And I'm like, oh, it's
Yes.
going to be beautiful. And she goes,
Yes.
maybe we should think about doing like towels, maybe some flip flops. And I'm like, smart wife, smart. So we're putting together stuff like that and working with local sponsors to make that to where when people come, they can kind of just hit the ground running and be ready to go the moment that they showed up. Most people are coming in early Sunday or late Saturday night. One of the cool tricks that I'll tell you guys too is that once you've booked your hotel at the discounted rate through the website, you can call the hotel and ask them about bumper nights. They are honoring our $139 a night rate on that Saturday as well as that Wednesday. So if you decide that you want to bring the family and stay a little longer and make this more of a beach vacation at an incredibly great value, you can do that as well. You just have to have your initial room booked through the page before you call the hotel so that they'll honor that rate.
So I was looking at flights last night. What airport should people be looking to fly into if they're flying in?
Yeah, there's a couple. It's interesting. My wife grew up in Wilmington, which is the local airport, the local town. Wilmington is the big town that you drive from over the coastal waterway to get out to Carolina Beach. And if you fly into ILM, which is an international airport, ILM is Wilmington International Airport, it's 18 miles. So literally you can land and grab an Uber and be out on the island with us in a matter of I think it's 25, 35 minutes with traffic, but a cheap Uber will get you there. Once you're on the island, most people actually don't roll around in cars. They use golf carts. You can rent these really pimped out golf carts and take them all over the island and run, through Curie Beach and down to Fort Fisher. You can go up and go hit like Wrightsville and some of the other beaches that are north as well. Cool part about the way that these communities are laid out is that everything's kind of right there along the coast. So it's beautiful drives, good time, things are chill. If ILM doesn't have a good or cheap flight option for you, Myrtle Beach is another option that we tell people. Myrtle Beach is about 82 miles away. And then Raleigh-Durham, if you want to go to a really large airport, you can go Raleigh-Durham or Charlotte. Both of those are just I think they're like 120, 140 miles away. So you'd be looking at a rental car and a couple hour drive. Most of the folks we've talked to are finding really cheap flights into ILM. One of my coworkers booked his last night, and from Boston Logan, I think he was getting in for like $310 for his round trip. So don't be afraid to take the ILM option. Usually it's $30 to $50 more than what you would pay to do like Raleigh, Durham, or Charlotte, and then you'd have to rent a car anyway. So the better deal is to try to go straight into ILM if you can.
You talked about Salt Life.
Yep.
Talk to me about Badge Life, because
Yeah.
us going to cons, we always look forward to the badges. So do you have anything ready for this year?
I do. We are very blessed. We have a person who had created the badges for B-Sides Colorado Springs this last year. And they came to us with an idea because we said, again, being first year, being somewhat limited budget on what we can do, we wanted to have something unique and interesting, but obviously I couldn't be going with like a DEF CON badge with the brand new Raspberry Pi or anything else crazy like that, right? And also with us only having 2.5 months from now before this event's going to be happening, we had to come up with something fairly quick. I can tell you the badges are 3D printed and that they have an embedded NFC in them. The NFC ties to a Pieces of 8 pirate treasure hunt. For those of you who, again, aren't familiar with Carolina Beach in this area, this is where Blackbeard spent most of his time. This is where his local haunts were, right? One of the things that we've actually talked about, unofficial, not part of the conference, but on Saturday night before the conference happens, there's a bunch of us who are going to go out into Wilmington and hit 3 of the different bars that are haunts where they're the bars that Blackbeard and the crews used to haunt clear back then, right? Blue Post, a couple others, right? My wife is the one who's kind of putting this together. So if you come out a little early, be sure to let us know so that you can figure out where we're at those evenings to party.
Well, put me down for that, because I would love to do that.
The fun part about the Pieces of 8 is the Pieces of 8 is going to be a contest that is driven by different clues and potentially maps that bring you to different places that are walking distance from the hotel along the Carolina Beach that are either partner businesses or other types of things where they're just little things that we want to share with folks. And as you go to each of these different locations, you'll use your phone and you can scan the NFC Piece of 8 when you find it. And then that ties back to your NFC code that helps us kind of track how far everybody's at in the competition. And then, of course, we'll be giving away a prize, most likely a black badge for lifetime admittance at the end of the event. So again, cool things going on with the badges and the contest that's there as well.
Yeah.
Not something where you're going to need to know soldering, not something where you're going to have to bring a full kit to rip things apart. The idea is, come out, get your badge, have a fun time, and go out and play. Other cool thing to mention too is that most of these local businesses are really excited that we're coming out for this, and they're offering us discounts. So if you're walking around with your 3D printed badge from the conference, most of these bars and businesses, if you ask them, are going to have like 10 and 15% discounts on your food, on your drink, on other types of things like that too.
Nice. It's like an extended partnership.
Yeah. The cool part about Carolina Beach is that this boardwalk is a small boardwalk, and it's one of the last remaining classic boardwalks on the East Coast, right? For those of you that are out in California, I know you got boardwalks every other city, so this isn't that special for you. But for those people that are out on the East Coast, Atlantic City, Carolina Beach Boardwalk, some of these others, they're starting to become a rare thing. And
Yes.
and it's neat because when you go out to them, you can feel the nostalgia and the impact of how these places have shaped and created these communities, right? And I think that that's one of the big things that my wife and I wanted to really share is we were out there on our anniversary and we were sitting, on this rooftop deck, and the weather was perfect and there's good music playing and we had just had this amazing meal, and I get my receipt and I look down at it and it's $30. And I'm like, wait a
That's
minute, we
unheard
just had like all you could eat seafood and alcohol. How is this $30? And I go up to the itemized list and I couldn't believe it. And I was sitting there just ranting and raving about how much I loved it out there. My wife was actually the one. She goes, can you imagine, we've been talking about throwing this conference. Why don't we do it here? Why don't we bring a whole bunch of hackers out to the beach and take over a hotel and just have like a 3-day party where we bring everyone together. Doesn't matter if they're old graybeards, if they're students, if they're people. Maybe you've never, ever once, ever gone to a hacking event in your life and you just want to come kind of feel and see the culture and meet people. Maybe it's something you're interested in getting into for work, right? This conference is perfect for you. This is
Yeah.
not a conference where we're going to sit there and talk about zero-day exploits. This is not about the new end day you found. This is not about the cool hack that you did for work. This is all about people coming and telling stories that are about the foundation of what we know as hacker culture, hacker history. That's one of the things that we tell people is it's like, come help us celebrate the history of hacking. And the stories that people are going to tell, some of them again are ranging from the mid to late 70s. And then we've got generational talks all the way up to modern times now, where I've seen some neat speeches that people are putting in where they're talking about the learning of the lessons of the past to shape and create the future and policy around how we're going to tackle things like AI, right? Or new persistent threat that we're seeing from nation state actors, right? There's a blend of all kinds of things. But the talk tracks that we're really trying to promote and get people interested in are trying to share pieces of knowledge and information that otherwise may be lost to time, right? If we don't record them, if we don't pass it on, not just through an oral history, but trying to capture this stuff with people up on stage, sharing, these key moments that shaped the internet, that shaped the world, shaped our industry. I fear that we'll lose those lessons forever. And I just think that that would be such a sacrilege with all of the amazing things that are out there.
Agreed. And I think that's what makes this conference so special and so unique and so needed is that we need to continue to tell those stories. And yeah, I think that you have a very stacked conference coming up. You ran down the list. It sounds like you're building an incredible experience for people that show up. What goes into that? Because a lot of people see that end result, they're going to come out, they're going to have an awesome time. But as a
Yeah.
conference organizer, I'm sure this was not a seamless or easy experience for you. So just from that perspective, talk me through like your process there and just, some of the challenges that you had to overcome from an organizational standpoint.
Sure, sure. So 20, 21, 23 years, something like that as a DEF CON goon, right? 21 years to lead. I'm the founder of Sky Talks, so I helped run and put that together. I speak at conferences all the time, right? CypherCon, for instance, 2 weeks I'll be at CypherCon. I'm excited to go to that event. But I had went around for like the last year or 2 years to all these different events, and we wrote down everything we liked or didn't like. And then when we sat down to create this conference, we have a professional production company, Bravo 6, and the two people that we're working with from Bravo 6 are kind of our boots on the ground. And they're the people that are doing all the stuff like coordinating with these local businesses, the hotels, the contracting, all that stuff. So first thing I would say is that having a professional production company help you with this stuff, especially if it's a larger type event, you start getting over like 20, 30 people, it's absolutely a necessity. I am blown away when I hear, from like the Potters talk about like the work that they did with like Shmoo and finding out that, Heidi and Bruce did all of that coordination by themselves, like for years. And that is a full-time job. I cannot even begin to tell you how crazy of a full-time job it is. The other thing that's interesting as a conference promoter is that you put the idea out there to the industry and you go, okay, I'm putting a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort in my face on this. Like, are people going to be interested? And the beautiful thing that I can tell you with the hacker community is that if you build it, they will come. When we put out this idea and started talking to people about it, we were worried because it's very differentiated. To your point, there are no other conferences like this, right? I keep trying to tell people, this is going to feel more like a hacker festival or like a hacker experience than it is your typical hacker conference. When I think of a typical hacker conference, I go buy a room at a hotel. I sit in that hotel for 3 or 4 days. I go to speeches. I go to hit some vendor tables. And that's kind of the conference. So much of what we're doing is far above and beyond the speeches, right? Or the other things that we have planned. It's, Hacker Jeopardy at night, right? The live concert, all these beachside events, going and doing things like trying to take over the arcade, right? And bringing people out to where they're all going to be playing on this boardwalk, this amusement park, and all these things together. It's a very different type of feel, and that was one of the things that we really wanted to go for. Is that no matter if you want to be one of those people that's sitting in the room listening to every single speech, making sure you never miss a single thing, or if you're one of those people who shows up to a conference, you already know everybody and you don't care about the speeches, either way, this conference is going to have something special to keep you engaged and keep you going.
Love it. You're building an experience, I think, and
That's
I'm
the
really
idea.
looking forward to it. Yeah. So, we talked about this, but Carolina Beach is equipped with some really killer bars and outdoor venues that you can duck into. So I think that's a great segue just to talk about bars for a moment because this is
Sure.
BarCode. Uh, Judging by the badge wall behind you, you've made your way through TS more than a few times just for conferences alone. So, you know,
Yeah.
due to your own con expeditions, what would you say is the most unique bar or, the best bar that you've ever been to?
That I've ever been to?
That you've ever been
Boy,
to?
boy, that is tough. The funny thing is I love dive bars. So my favorite bars where I've spent a lot of my time are some of just the most rundown, darkly lit, smelling like stinking nasty trash can places, right? And I will say that back in the day, a place that holds a very special place in my heart, and with all 303ers, was a place in Denver called Netherworld. And Netherworld was 303's clubhouse, meaning that 24 hours a day, pretty much, even when the bar was closed, you could show up and there's likely somebody from 303 there. There were more than one night when Eric, the owner of the bar, allowed people to pass out and sleep in back in the bar. And we were often the folks that at the end of the night were helping put up the chairs and clean up the bar and go. So I will say that my favorite bar ever in history is probably Netherworld. I will say that for the experience, I think it's called the Underground in Chicago. This is
Mm.
kind of one of those little speakeasy bars where you enter through like the side of the building.
Yeah.
I think that's the name of it. I'll have to look that back up. But this place was epic. They had one of the most impressive bourbon and scotch selections I've ever seen in my life. And they had like the night that we went was like a jazz night. So they had live music, down in kind of a dark basement area again. But it was just exceptional. And then, back to the conference in Carolina Beach again, Fat Pelican special.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a
I
lot
looked
of
at it.
really chill bars out there, and most of these places, especially in summer, as you can imagine, there's live music. It's packed, right? It's on the beach, so people are dressed and having a fun time. But going up and down the Carolina Beach and hitting all these different like little bars that are there, every one of them is completely unique and different in its feel, in its look, in the different things that they carry, whether or not they do food or not. But I'll say I think that I expect that I'll be spending a bunch of time at Fat Pelican this year.
Yeah, yeah, you and me both. I think if you're in any bar and you're conversating with an OG hacker, that just elevates your experience. So that just adds another element to it.
You hit the nail on the head, man. One of the biggest things when we first advertised this, I got frustrated because there were all these people that are like, "Oh, I'm not some old graybeard hacker. I've only been in this for 3, 4 years. I don't know that this conference is right for me." And it's like, this conference is perfect for you. The
Exactly.
whole point of why we're doing this is to try to bring all these people together so that you can develop friendships. You can have involved conversations, right? I love Hacker Summer Camp, right? I go every year. I go to B-sides, Black Hat, DEF CON, Woo, all the different events, right? And I have a great time running around. But at the end of it, after 9 days every year, I go back home and I realize I didn't see a lot of the people I wanted to see. I didn't get to have the conversations I wanted to have. Or when I did run into the people I wanted to see, they were so busy and on to the next thing that maybe we only got a moment to just hug it out and remind each other that we love and care about each other, right? And that we're there for each other, but we don't get to go deep. One of the things that's so cool about the this experience that we're putting together is that you could be somebody again who has never been hands-on keyboard involved in anything to do with information security, and you could go be building a relationship with someone who is the founder of one of the top companies in our industry, or or some of the founders of some of the hacking crews that really created the culture that exists today. and being able to have that one-on-one nature and the ability to go build these relationships and to find a mentor, right? Or to be a mentoree, right? To have this opportunity to really build and contribute to the greater community and culture of what's important to us all. That's one of the things that we think is really differentiated and special about this, right? It's not necessarily all about the conference and the speakers. It's about your opportunity to come out and make this something special.
Okay, Pyro, I just heard last call here. You got time for one more?
I got time for one more.
Okay. If you decided to open a cybersecurity themed bar,
Yeah.
what would the name be and what would your signature drink be called?
Boy, I think I would call the bar in security, as in with, and then security. And the reason being is it would be a nod. That was going to be the original name of Tiger Team, our TV show back in the day. And they thought it was too witty for the masses, which is why they went with Tiger Team. But I think insecurity would be great. And I what I would do is that I think I would try to kind of call back to the days of the old internet cafes, right? So alcoholic, caffeinated beverages, full bar back, large square tables, to where everyone can sit around and kind of speak and talk and do the things that make it valuable. And rowdy, right? I don't want to go into a bar and have it be quiet and boring and feel like if I'm being a little too loud or if I get a little too excited about one of the stories I'm telling, like I'm gonna be upsetting somebody that's there, right? I'd want it to have that feel of a true proper hacker dive bar. As far as my drink, I'm spoiled. I would probably go with a really good smoked old fashioned and go that route. And as far as the liquor goes, I think we could be optional on what we do with it. But to name it, I think I would have to call it something like the Magic Smoke,
Yes, I love
referencing
that.
back to all the times when we've made a mistake with our electronics and the Magic Smoke has come out.
Okay, man. Well, SawCon, can't wait. I will see you there. Hopefully, I will see every single listener that tuned in there in full effect. You may even see me on site with a mic in hand. You never know. You'll have to see. But before you drop, Pyro, once more, can you just give our listeners the URL where they can get all the info, where they can register,
Absolutely.
and all your involvements as well, where they can reach you?
Absolutely. So for the conference, that's sodiumchloridecon.com. So naclcon.com. naclcon.com. A little tricky to say off the tongue, but I promise
Yes.
it'll get you the right location. There's tons of good information on there. Again, you can do your registration and your hotel through the links that are available on the primary page. We are going to be updating and listing our speakers and updating the local community page as well to give people more information and detail about some of the fun stuff we were just talking about. Cost is $495, and $495, like I said, that includes all access to seminars, fireside chats, the badge, the Pieces of Eight competition, pool party with live DJs, the concert at Seawitch with dual core, Hacker Jeopardy, 3 open bars, 5 meals provided for the general attendees, a special meal for select speakers and select guests, which again, there are ways you can get on that list. So if you show up and you ask, we may be able to get you into that one as well. Loaded gift bag with all kinds of special apparel, coupons for local businesses. We're going to do a hacker book fair. So many of the people that are coming out and speaking are folks that have also published. So we're going to do like a hacker book fair that has everybody's books available. So you can buy the book and then you can chase them down and get them to sign the book for you.
Yeah.
But just tons of good stuff. And as we've mentioned before, you know, even just the Marriott deal itself is the thing to really close the price gap on this. We had some people, they're like $495 for a first year conference, and it's like when you see everything that's being included and you see what it takes to put this experience together for everybody, that's actually very cheap. We're still very dependent upon sponsors. So if you hear this and you're a company that would like to sponsor and come out and grab a table as one of our top or medium level sponsors, hit me up. My personal email address is pyr0 303 at gmail.com. That's pyro with a 0, 303 info@nacl.com. For conference related stuff, info@nacl will get you right into our team, and we can help you with any of the asks or questions that you have. And overall, again, just Chris, thank you so much for having me on here and letting me have the opportunity to talk to your crowd.
Anytime, man. We appreciate it. And thanks for your time to coming on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the event. And I'll see you then.
That
Take
sounds
care.
good. Looking forward to it, bud.
All right. See ya.